ordinances in this date, since we're not going to have a public hearing on an ordinance. There are some people who want to give us some input on that. So for your information, the public forum is held at 9 o'clock for a maximum of 45 minutes or whenever the testimony is done. Individuals are going to be limited to 3 minutes, and because I think we have very few signed up this morning. If individual want to share additional information longer than the 3 minutes, I would encourage them to provide ask additional information on a comment card or provide any more information in writing to us, and the staff will make sure that that all gets to the board. For your information, those of you who have not been here before, the public forum sign-up begins 30 minutes prior to the actual meeting right now, the sign-up closes promptly at 11. And we take folks in the order of which the sign-up has been made. If individuals have issues that are not within the jurisdiction of the board, TriMet staff will be available to listen to those concerns and answer questions. And frankly, if you bring something up, we'll be able to refer it to the right staff person to be able to get back with you. So with that, I've got 3 people this morning who would like to talk with us under the public forum. I'm going to call 2 of you up first. Alex Hawk, which we haven't seen for a while. Alex, come on up. And Lupita Belagore, is that right? You're going to have to tell me how to pronounce your name when you come up. Okay, please come on up.
And if you'll please leave at least 6 inches between your chin and the microphone. Right. Thanks.
Alex, welcome.
Thank you. So my name is Alex Hawk. I've been a passenger for a while now, but recently with the new job, I do not have proper transit access. And that's one thing that I think TriMet should actually look into. A lot of the people that I survey said that they would love to ride the bus if they had proper access and if it actually went by the place of business. The bus line by my place of employment is line 38 Boones Ferry, but from where I live in Tigard, access isn't as good, and connections between the closest bus line, line 76, the transfer between the 76 and the 38 is very poor. There's half an hour to 45-minute headways. So that's one thing that's very minor. But one thing I'd like to know is, recently, I'd like to remind TriMet that they are a public figure who deals with the public every day. And on TriMet's Facebook page, I'm very troubled by the managers who are actually operating it, who are willingly attacking my best friend, Eric Halstead, who is just trying to get some answers out of TriMet as to the bus fleet age, service, and winter weather schedules. Instead of actually getting answers from TriMet, people outside of TriMet would actually say, you don't know what you're talking about. You just need to shut up. We have a great system here. And I see TriMet liking comments that are attacking my best friend, and that really shines a light as to the public relations of TriMet, and that's very unfortunate. So, are we, and I'd like to remind TriMet that it is myself, Eric, and everyone else here who is funding the management's paychecks. So, if you don't want to answer the questions, then don't be in the business. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
Can I interrupt really fast? I'm sorry. Lupita was supposed to be signed up to testify on the ordinance.
Yes, I'm sorry. And well, we're not going to have a public hearing on the ordinance, so we're going to cover that under the public forum. But we had our public hearing at the last meeting. So provide the input. We want to hear it for the ordinance. So please proceed.
Okay. Good morning, TriMet Board. My name is Lupita Velasquez, and I'm a youth leader at Ropel. The first thing I want to say is that we appreciate TriMet's effort to reduce the burdens faced by young people by reducing youth fares and continuing Youth Pass for another year. We are glad to see TriMet recognize that its youth fares were too high in the first place and to decide something about this. As a member from the community, I would like to know how the proposal came to be before this board. Because it seems to members of the community like me that even when TriMet makes good decisions, it makes them badly. This proposal did not come from the process that meaningful engaged youth. The proposals did not come from youth, from us, the youth. And today's decision will come from with almost no real opportunity for us to influence TriMet's decisions. The current proposal before you was put together before the Youth Transit Justice Summit co-developed by the Multnomah Youth Commission in Opal. This summit was organized by Youth for Youth around transit issues and informed by several focus groups done in the community. Together, youth leaders and youth from the community vetted all suggestions, recommendations, and even added a few more. Two examples of the policies in these youth recommendations are that TriMet should reduce the youth pass from $3.30 to $2. Not the $2.50 being proposed. And youth monthly passes should be reduced from $30 to $15, not $28 being proposed. A $2 decrease in the monthly youth pass is simply not enough. All youth at the summit voted on these recommendations and determined that this was the affordable fare for that youth want and need. These and other youth-led recommendations are the what you should base your decision on, especially because no youth are in decision-making positions at TriMet, and no youth are currently represented on TriMet's Transit Equality Advisory Committee. We deserve, in fact, justice demands that our voices are a meaningful part of making decisions that most impact us. Just reaching out to youth for feedback after decisions have already been made should not satisfy TriMet. This agency must not stop making decisions about us without us. Copies have been passed of the recommendations that came out of the Youth Summit. It's time for the agency to prove that it takes community perspectives seriously and act on these policy recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good testimony. I appreciate that. And I have one other person that again wants to speak specifically to ordinance 335. So Christopher Lucchina. Lucchina, okay. Okay, please come up.
Hi, my name is Christopher Lucchini. I am a Multnomah Youth Commissioner on the Sustainability Committee. Multnomah Youth Commission gives a voice to youth in the city of Portland and Multnomah County. I am here to thank the board for approving youth fare reductions. I am here to talk about the importance of affordable, convenient, and safe transit. I am here to thank the board for looking into making a Youth Pass partnership with other school districts, all in 3 minutes. Thank you for implementing fare reductions for all youth. Times are tough now for everyone. Portland families will appreciate reduced fares for youth. The cuts should be even deeper. At the recent Youth Transit Justice Summit, youth recommended that the monthly youth pass be $15 a month. Youth also recommended a $2 Youth Day Pass. Reduced fares will make it easier for families to pay for other needs. It will make it easier for families to go outside their neighborhood, go to school, doctor, grocery stores, and fun. Thank you for supporting renewing Youth Pass for PPS high school students. Youth Pass is very important. PPS high school students do not have yellow school buses. Having a free Youth Pass helps students get to and from school. It helps them get to their extracurricular activities. It helps them get to part-time jobs and volunteer opportunities. These activities keep youth busy and out of trouble. They help them engage with their community. They help them get jobs and go to college. Affordable and convenient transit helps everyone access opportunity. I would like to encourage the board to see how Youth Pass can be expanded to other high school students. High school students are more independent. They go places by themselves. They also cannot work full time. They need to get bus fare for their families. High school students are not driving that much anymore. Their families cannot afford to put a teen driver on their insurance. They may not want to lend the family car to their teen driver. High school students get places by bus. They need extracurricular activities and volunteer hours for college and job applications. Many high school students work part-time jobs. They cannot do these things if they cannot afford to get there. An investment in young people is an investment in the future life of the city. High school students become adults. They work, raise families, pay taxes, and vote. Investing in high school students now saves money later. It is a hands up, not a hands out. Multnomah Youth Commission looks forward to continue to work with TriMet and the board to create a transit system that works for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Appreciate it. All right, I think that's all who signed up this morning for the public forum. Is there anybody else in the audience that we've missed that signed up? I will point out that, again, we'll discuss some of the comments that were made here on Ordinance 335 when we get to Ordinance 335. You had a question you might want also answered when we get to that ordinance?
I mean, I could ask it now or when we get to the ordinance.
Well, you could ask it, and they can either answer now or be ready to answer it when we get to the ordinance.
Just specifically on this ordinance, in regards to kind of our process, I was just wondering if this had gone in front of the TIAC.
It has, and you might recall that there was a recommendation, a letter of recommendation from TIAC presented at your last meeting, and there was also one comment trying to align that one member of the TIAC to the recommendations of the Multnomah Youth Commission Summit as well. So there was a series of correspondence on that, but it has gone before TIAC, and as a body, they did recommend approval.
And we do have some pretty broad representation from the community and from groups like OPOL on the TIAC.
Yes,
correct?
we do. And I would also note that we've offered a seat on TIAC to the Multnomah County Youth Commission as well. So we hope to have a representative from that group moving forward.
Excellent, thank you.
I just point out before we get to that ordinance, the board did receive the financial recommendations from the Multnomah Youth Commission, both I think at the meeting, our last meeting, and it was also sent out again afterwards. So we're aware of the information and appreciate their input and advice. And we'll talk about it a bit more when we get down to Ordinance 335. Okay, with that then, I'm going to close the public forum, and what we'll now do, I'm going to open the regular business meeting, call to order, regular business meeting and briefing for the TriMet Board of Directors for Wednesday, June 11th, 2014. So with that, I'm going to ask the General Manager to begin with his comments. Mr. McFarland.
Well, thank you, Mr. Board President, members of the board, and everyone here. First of all, I just wanted to acknowledge the tragic events at Reynolds High School yesterday. And I wanted to also thank our operators and our passengers, because we did pull some buses out of regular service, which did have some impact on regular service. But obviously, everybody knows why, which is why we provided an essential public service in that link in terms of evacuating the students from the school at that point in time. So I'm very grateful for the work of TriMet operations to actually be able to pull that off in a very short period of time. So just wanted to make that acknowledgement and that level of recognition as well.
quick comment. Representing the East Side, we certainly are very thankful for TriMet, the leadership team, the operators, and the ATU for their service yesterday in assisting us in that time of sadness. So I certainly want to. I received a number of great comments yesterday from the folks out there. I actually happened to be, just oddly enough, at the corner of 242nd and Gleason, just as the event was unfolding. So was just startled by the significant police response. But later in the day, as things were unfolding, it was really positive to see this organization right there assisting. And again, I want to thank our leadership team, the folks that work on that hard, of course, the operators and their ability and willingness to be flexible to assist in this situation, and also, as Neil mentioned, the riders and some of the inconvenience that they experienced. And again, from my representation of the East Side, folks like Fred Meyer's organization like that really lent their services. They actually closed their store down for a couple of hours to assist in that situation also. So, just a huge heartfelt thanks for all those involved in assisting us in the time of need. So, thank you.
If I may, I'd like to heartily second that. I've got relatives who attend Reynolds High School, so yesterday was very scary. And I really appreciate Neil, TriMet, and the operators and the passengers for their help in that. It was too close to home.
Indeed. With that, I'll try to regain composure here and actually also tell you about another event that I think TriMet really rallied for over the last 2 weeks, which is our Rose Festival. We had on the order of 271,000 rides on the Saturday of the Starlight Parade. And as you may recall, that is probably our toughest event of the year because it's one when everybody comes downtown. And because of the lateness of the hour when the parade ends, everybody wants to go home at the same time. And so that is the big challenge, and I'd say the organization actually rose to that challenge again, and my thanks again to TriMet Operations for the great work on that. Grand Floral Day, we provided 255,000 rides. That's a much more fun event for us. We put on a lot of extra service, but again, people tend to stick around downtown to take advantage of many of those additional events and attractions, and so that is one a little bit easier than we've had before. But I'd also note that we also have a great turnout of volunteers from the TriMet staff. In this case, I think the number was somewhere between 65 and 70 people volunteering their time to be at rail platforms or to assist at our bump-through locations. As you know, we continue to run service through the parades, which takes an awful lot of staffing. So a great thanks to a great team. That's a lot of teamwork to pull off those events as successfully and as safely as we did over the last couple of weeks. I just wanted to acknowledge that. Also, on a bright note, I wanted to report May ridership system-wide was up by 5.3% over the May previous. And that is the largest monthly increase since before the Great Recession. There's a couple drill downs that I just wanted to share with you. You supported the increase in frequent service intervals that went into place on May 1st. Weekly frequent bus ridership was up 8.6% from comparing May of last year. Max ridership was up about 2.7%, West ridership about 13.3%, which is sort of the typical trend that we've been seeing, of course, on that. The other interesting thing is peak ridership is continuing to grow, which is one of the challenges of a transit system is not just carrying people, but carrying them precisely when they want to go. That peak ridership was up 7.1, and I think that bodes well for the level of employment within the region as well. So we're very pleased to see those gains. And then the other thing I would just note related particularly to our bus system is last Thursday we began putting in service our next round of replacement buses, the 3200 series, as I noted. And over the coming months, we'll actually put 60 new buses into service over the summer. And one big change customers will notice is there's actually what we call now a porch light, which is a new light over the back door. That's in addition to the lights on the steps and internal and external to the vehicle. So I think that will be a nice enhancement. There were also some ergonomic changes that have been requested by the operators, and we have more of those on the way. The one thing that I would just note about these, and one of the reasons that we're so pleased with them, is that we will have, by the end of summer, 185 replacement buses in operation since we began this more accelerated replacement. So again, thank you for your support of that. That has made a dramatic difference in reliability of the bus system overall. The numbers in terms of mean distance between failure continue to shrink, and that's a very good thing. And in addition to that, they're showing much improved fuel economy, and of course, with the new clean diesel emissions, far fewer emissions. So it's a great advantage all around for the system, and appreciate your support of that. I did want to note also that Board Member Prosser and I attended with different hats on a little bit, a Climate Smart Community Summit last month. And it ended up with a series of recommendations related to Metro's Climate Smart Communities plan. What this was really intended to do was to come to a consensus, a better consensus on the direction of the various strategies that Metro had identified to help us reduce carbon emissions in the region over the next 20 years. And I would the long and the short of this, and we'll do a much more thorough briefing for you later in the summer, is that transit becomes a very key strategy for the region. And we saw actually increased support for the transit sorts of strategies around that table, which includes mayors of many of the cities and representatives from the counties as well as Metro. So I thought it was a very positive conversation. I appreciated Director Prosser's help in all of that. He's also very persuasive, I think, with his colleagues, and I think that was very important to really discuss the importance of transit, not just as a climate-related strategy, but in terms of equity and economic development as well. I also, and again, we'll brief you much more thoroughly on the results of that. And I should just note that Metro will be doing a series of technical studies over the summer, and the results of the actual final, if you will, mix of strategies will then be presented in the fall. And we'll bring that back to you as well. Just an update, quick update on Portland, Milwaukee. Last Friday, I was pleased to be joined by Director Stovall, Prosser, and Bethel at a event we called Meet in the Middle. It was, I think, a very happy event where we were able to bring people from both sides of the bridge truly to the middle and have a symbolic ribbon in terms of the additional tie that this will create for our region. And obviously there were a lot of people who have given a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to see this project come together represented there. So I think it was a very positive event, and a great milestone for the Portland-Milwaukee project, which you should know overall is 80% complete now, on time, on budget. Our west segment is substantially complete. Our bridge will be substantially complete before too awfully long, but we still have a lot of track work and electrical work and railings and other things to go to create a complete project. I'll drive along the project. We'll show great progress on the east side, where we're essentially beginning to build stations and putting all of that together. I'd also note, a little invisible to us, is that our new light rail vehicles are being assembled in Sacramento by Siemens. The first light rail vehicle, which has the number 521, has moved into factory testing. And there are 4 more in the manufacturing process right now. Final manufacturing process. So we do expect that the first vehicle will be delivered here to Portland, Oregon, I should say to Gresham, Oregon. Yeah, which is Portland's a suburb of Gresham. Yeah. In August. So again, that will be another major milestone for the project as it advances. I would just note that we have contracted with 516 firms on the project overall. 128 of those are disadvantaged business firms. 80% of them are Oregon-based. So we continue to be very proud of the local content in the project overall. I'd be happy to pause for any questions, but I do have the most important part of my presentation to go still.
I guess I would just add that Dr. Bethel and I had a chance to tour the bridge and OHSU's new building down there about a week and a half ago, right? And so we had a little preview of what was going on with the bridge. But I just want to state that the partnership with OHSU is strong, and their new facility is going to be a true asset to the community and obviously for the education of pharmacists, dentists, and doctors. And it's an unbelievable facility, and obviously it would not be there if it were not for the light rail providing that opportunity for transit. And they're relying on transit in a big way to get their students, doctors, and patients. Do you remember the number of dentist appointments that they serve on a year? It was
200,000 plus
Yes.
a year.
and they'll be going to this facility. I just give you an idea of the magnitude of and the scale of this project, and how, again, important transit will be to actually being able to get folks in and out of that area in that new building. So I was really impressed, and the OHSU board members who were present were also very impressed with the overall package coordination, and frankly, how we saved a lot of money and leveraged our dollars to take advantage of the federal resources in the most effective and efficient way. So hats off to, again, the staff from both organizations. It was really an amazing tour, and I hope when that building's opened, everybody has a chance to go down and look at it, because it is very, very impressive, and it'll be filled very soon. I think they take possession of the building from the contractor the end of this month, and they'll be moving people in shortly thereafter. So it'll be fun to see how it all progresses in that area. I'm sorry, I had to mention that. Did you have anything else on that you wanted to add?
Well, the only other thing I want to say is that anyone who gets an opportunity to go up, what I found myself doing the last 2 times I've been down there is looking over at the empty space and dreaming to see how it has been transformed, and to know that when the other development is done on the south of the new bridge and the station there, how open and welcoming it's going to be for the rest of the city and others to come into the South Waterfront area. And then to think of all of this, that TriMet Max is going to be in the middle of all of it. Thank you.
Yep. Again, great partnership, as Board President Warner noted, with OHSU, and we've been really grateful. And also a great partnership with our neighbor Zidell Industries as well. So good work all around there. Again, the most important part of my presentation. I would ask that we could have our 3 operators of the year, Andy Church, Jason Wang, and Fernando Lopez, come up. We have 3 chairs up here for you. And we're going to toast you a little bit in terms of the award you've just received. As Andy, Fernando, and Jason come up, yeah, right there. We had on May 20th a ceremony in our new Center Street training rooms for the first time, where amongst many very qualified and deserving candidates, these 3 gentlemen were selected as our operators of the year, based on outstanding driving records, customer service, and attendance. And the winners, you should know, are selected by the peers after meeting certain standards. So they should be very proud of what they've been able to accomplish this last year, and the respect that they have of their peers. I would note Andy Church is our bus operator of the year. He has 9 National Safe Driver Awards. He has 9 Superior Performance Awards. He has 4 years of attendance and his 11 years of operating with TriMet. Jason Wang has 14 years of service with us. He is a master operator, and he has 12 Superior Performance Awards. And Fernando Lopez is our part-time or mini-run bus operator of the year. He has 8 National Safe Driving Awards, 100% customer satisfaction award, 8 years of perfect attendance, and nearly 14 years of service. So my hope is that the board would be pleased to adopt the 3 resolutions approving, but before that, perhaps everybody to give them a great round of applause.
Well, why don't we do the formality of taking action on the 3 resolutions, which I believe can be approved by a single motion. Is there a motion to approve a resolution? Okay, there it is. That's the fastest I've ever seen the board move on a resolution. So
He didn't let you get finished before he said something.
why don't we take a vote on this, and then I want to turn maybe to you folks and allow you to make some comments here today too. And I don't know whether I think we got some things we'd like to hand to them after that. So I have a motion on the table to approve Resolution 1406, 31, 32, and 33, which are designating operators of the year in various parts of TriMet's operations. Any further discussion right now? Go ahead.
No, I'm just going to hop up and shake your hand.
Okay, so just a minute, don't, Joe, let's vote here real quickly. So I'm going to call, so all those in favor of the motion to approve the 3 resolutions, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is approved unanimously. Congratulations. So first off, I want to turn it over to you real quickly to make some comments if you want to. You don't have to, but we'd welcome if you do. So you've got microphones there. Please have at it if you want.
My name is Andy Church. I'm very honored to be recognized as an Operator of the Year.
Thank you so
Thank you.
My name is Fernando Lopez. Also pretty honored to be here, to be recognized. And also I'm going to say that the people here, that makes TriMet is the people. So we are the greatest asset. Doesn't matter how many buildings you build, how many new buses you get, but the people behind it that makes TriMet. That's what I'm going to say, because we are not individuals, right? We are brothers and sisters. We are families. We are a whole community. And what brings people to Portland, to this area, is because we have the greatest transit system, perhaps not only regional, nationally, perhaps even internationally. So people come to look at us and, just think about it as operators be behind this great effort. Thank you.
Good.
I agree with him.
The man of few words. May the whole board come up here.
Yes, and we'll want to pose for a picture, so we want everybody up here. But as we do that, when we actually presented the awards, we had like full plaques. So now I want this is for Andy, it's permanent, and this. Make sure I can match the pictures of the faces. Yeah.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. Come on up here. We want a picture with the whole board and everything. Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. That's right, forget what you wrote. Good to hear this is what it looked like in 2014. I didn't take that. I didn't want to take that. Somebody else. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks.
Mr. General Manager, are you ready? That concludes your remarks, or do you have some?
That concludes my remarks, unless there are any questions the board might have.
Any comment?
I just want to make a remark about the drivers. I've never was a bus driver, but I did drive a truck in San Francisco for about 2 years.
so I do have some understanding of congestion in people and how hard it can be. So thanks again. You really a credit to TriMet and to your union. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So do you want to introduce the next
Yes.
presentation?
So one of the things we do every summer is focus on, and if I could ask Harry and Pam to come forward, on a particular safety outreach campaign. And again, one of our key strategies, and we have another partner in all of this that our staff will tell you about, is Operation Lifesaver. And so we've really, which is a national effort, which actually has a pretty strong Oregon presence as well, in terms of rail, emphasizing rail safety and safety of individuals around rails. So we have an outreach campaign which is underway, particularly focused this summer. We find that's a particularly important time to reach young people in particular, but also good reminders for the whole community in general. So Harry, Pam, I don't know who's going to go first here.
I will, just briefly. Good morning, President Warner and board members. Safety is always at the forefront of our staff, and in particular the operations staff. And the safety outreach is just one important aspect of our safety program. And as Neil noted, there are actually two major campaigns that we launch every year. During the winter months, when it begins to get dark early, that's the Be Seen, Be Safe. And during the summer months, it's the Be Alert, Be Safe. And I have with me today Pam Wilson, who will present the overview of that safety outreach program.
Okay, thanks, Harry. So we really have a two-pronged approach to safety outreach. First, we have ongoing institutional messages that we place at points of contact all throughout the system. And they could look like channel cards on the inside of our vehicles, bulkhead ads on the inside of the vehicles, a lot of signage, Facebook posts, and so forth. The list is pretty long. So that's like ongoing all the time. And then, as Neil and Harry have said, we have campaigns at certain times of the year that really increase the visibility of our messages. I want to tell you about one of our newest campaigns, the Be Alert, Be Safe campaign. And this is the creative for that campaign that you're looking at now. This is the main messages, and you will see them in all different kind of forms and channels. And it's targeted, its objective is to increase awareness of the risks and the consequences of distracted behaviors, especially around our buses and our trains. It's targeted at 18 to 34-year-old males. Yes, we had a grant from Operation Lifesaver and the FTA, and that's a $25,000 grant. And it's really in its second year. We had a pilot project last year that was also funded on a much smaller level with Operation Lifesaver. But as Neil said, they are a critical partner to our efforts in this campaign. And as one would expect from the target audience that we want to reach, there's a lot of digital marketing, a lot of digital channels in our promotional mix. And even though it's designed to reach the primary audience, it really reaches, the messages really reach all our riders and members of the public. For example, like our TV ads alone, they reach like 51% of our target audience 4 times, but then they reach 52% of a much broader audience, like all viewers ages 18 to 49, 6 times. So it really reaches everybody. And a really powerful message this year was, it was a peer-to-peer testimonial, really convey the very real consequences of wearing earbuds and having distracted behaviors. And this is Ian Sutherland. He's 25 years old, and he and his bike were hit by Max last fall. And luckily, he was fine and gracious enough to let us use his story. And when we get done with this, I'll show you just a 15-second TV spot that we edited down from video that we shot the day that crash occurred. And another, here's Ian again. You'll see him. He was on a lot of our materials. The first phase of this campaign was April 4th through May 5th. And at that time, we had a call to action, which was to enter a safety quiz. We asked people to answer 2 questions, and they entered a contest for prizes. And this gave us another way to get some education out, but also gave us a measurement of what our response was. So people had to click through from all the digital channels to get to our landing page, and then they had to click through to the quiz. And 2,619 people entered that quiz. And we're going to also test for message recall this fall when we do that annual survey. So we'll get some more information about how we're doing. Are we actually moving the dial as we go year from year with this campaign? And I think some of the most important measurement, qualitative, could be comments from our writers, which was just generally pretty well accepted. LOL TriMet. And I like this one. Words of wisdom, TriMet. And that's it kind of in a nutshell, very quick. We want to show you the quick 15-second spot and then love to answer any questions you may have.
I don't have a question, I just want to comment. I was riding last night coming back into Portland on the plane, and the person beside me fell into that category, and I was showing her, and she was really impressed.
Oh,
so
great. Good to hear.
that was really neat. So
Great.
I even understood the language, which was
Excellent. Like I said, it reaches all audiences.
right. And I'm a relic, but
And this is
Almost lost my life on the TriMet due to not paying attention. It happened so fast that if I hadn't moved when I moved, it would have killed me. Don't wear headphones anywhere near the max. Constantly pay attention.
So pretty short, but kind of says it all. So, any questions?
Well, no, I can reiterate the concern of and the necessity of being alert. I think it was probably 5 years ago, I was getting ready to cross the max track and I had my earphones in and I wasn't paying attention. And if it had not been for the operator hitting their horn, I would have walked right in front of the max train. So certainly this information is very pertinent, and we need to make sure. I mean, with all the distractions we have today, and texting and walking, texting and driving is one thing, but texting and walking and all those things are certainly something we need to be certainly vigilant around the max and just around crosswalks and all of those things. So it's not just TriMet, but streets and corners and all of those things.
Right.
So
And this
I
campaign
like the
really related
campaign.
to all pedestrians,
Correct.
so absolutely. Good point.
I really appreciate your efforts to try to get to millennials. Is that the
Right, yes.
target audience that we're talking about? I would point out this is a problem that's been around for years. I'm sad to say when I was the director of ODOT in Salem, there were 2 high school students that were killed on the heavy rail line going right through the middle of town because, again, they had their Walkmans, I think it was at that time, on and did not hear the train coming. So I think the message, no matter what age, it's really, really important, and I'm glad to see the responses there. I think there was I think Joe Rose commented that maybe we thought some group thought we weren't doing a good job of meeting or addressing millennials. Do you have any comments on that one?
Yeah, that was something that was in Mashables.com, which is my understanding, kind of a national website, kind of they look at trends in media and so forth. And they weren't impressed with our creative, and the Oregonian blogger Joe Rose picked up on that. And I think I would say 2 things to that. First, I think the good news is that it got attention, because public awareness is the first step toward behavior change. And secondly, we really had good comments from our writers. And to me, those are the people that matter most with getting our message to.
I like it. Any other questions?
Okay.
All right. Thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you.
And we'll look forward to hearing a report of how we're doing on that. All right.
Mr. President,
Yes.
just one thing. I just want to offer just a little bit of an apology to some of you on this side who were not able to see that presentation because you were straining your necks just because of the way the screen is and having to switch to this room for this meeting today. Just wanted to apologize for that.
Thank you very much. So does that conclude the general manager's report? All right, then let's move on in our agenda to the consent agenda. And for those in the audience or anybody watching, the items that we have on our consent agenda are routine and may be approved by the board by one blanket motion. However, any board member may move an item from the consent agenda prior to our action on the agenda by requesting such action and asking for that item or items to be removed from this portion of the agenda. Today, we have 3 items on the agenda. The first one is a resolution directing that all ordinances be read by title only. That's so our general counsel doesn't have to spend the entire day reading our ordinances. The second one is approval of the board meeting minutes for May 28, 2014. And then the third one is a resolution 14-06030 authorizing the extension of a lease agreement with the city of Portland for certain real property located at 210 and 212 Northwest First Avenue. And so I believe they are routine, but is there any item that any member of the board would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none then, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any further discussion? All right, with that then I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Well, let's move on to our first resolution, which I think ties in directly to the ordinance that a couple of you testified to today, which is Resolution 14-06-34, which is approving an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Portland and the Portland Public School District for the 2014-2015 Student Pass Program. So this is a resolution we'll have, and we had an opportunity for folks to comment on that earlier. So, Mr. General Manager.
Members of the board, we did generally brief you on this topic as we introduced the ordinance that will follow this at your meeting last month. Again, this would continue the Portland Public School Youth Pass program, which has been very successful and I think very much appreciated by both the school district and the students who are recipients of the pass. But we also know that the board had raised a number of equity issues in terms of regional equity and how we begin to share some of the reduced fare issues region-wide. And so paired with the ordinance that's in front of you, we have essentially a revenue-neutral proposal for TriMet overall that would allow the Portland Public School Youth Pass program to continue, but also reduce youth fares region-wide for everybody. Specific to the resolution in front of you, what this calls for and allows is the entering into an intergovernmental agreement with the 2 other parties, Portland Public Schools and Portland City of Portland, as 1/3 equal partners, TriMet and those other 2 parties, to actually support the revenue that we would normally have gotten from the student pass sales. So really, this is just a replacement of the revenue that we would have normally received, and again, paid for 1/3 by TriMet and City of Portland and Portland Public Schools. So we believe that this is an equitable approach, and it's also an approach that we would love to enter into with other school districts. So the second part of the resolution actually authorizes the general manager and obviously the great staff that you've become very familiar with to begin to work with other school districts to see if we can begin to develop pass programs elsewhere in the district when that fits the needs of the students and the school districts and the parents involved. So again, we recognize that that may be a long-term proposition for some school districts, but other school districts may be closer to the point in time where that actually becomes a very feasible and viable alternative for them. So we will reach out to the school districts around the region, make sure that they know that these sorts of programs are available to them. But I would also note by having the 1/3 equal shares, our cash contribution to the Portland Public School program actually goes down, and that's about by about the amount that we will need to supplement our fare revenue when we reduce student fares, presuming you approve the ordinance that follows to the $1.25, $28 pass level. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I would also just note that this was a major issue that you brought up, not only when we approved the project proposal last year, but also was a major topic of your retreat that occurred last October. And so we've been working to implement the general policy direction that the board indicated at that point in time. And we have had a number of conversations along the way. As is the nature of these things, sometimes the deal doesn't really come together with the full until closer to the end. But again, we have certain timelines associated with getting this fair in place by September 1st. Your approval at this meeting is important related to that timeline because there are a lot of logistics and communication that we need to make sure is in the hands of students in particular before they leave school. So again, the timing of this is relatively critical. And while it may have been, for example, ideal to have waited until the Multnomah Youth Commission Summit meeting, I would say that timing wasn't matched, if you will, to the sequence of our fare changes and when we need to make these changes logistically to get them in the hand, get the information in the hands of all of our riders. So with that, I'd certainly be happy to answer or volley to other staff any questions you may have.
I have a question that goes to item 3 and 4, or maybe more a question for the attorney, for Shelley. Are we sure we've had every loophole or I's dotted and T's crossed that this won't be challenged by anyone for us trying to do the right thing?
Wow.
Yes or no answer?
Broad question, yes. No, yes was not my answer.
I know, you get paid by the word.
Can you be a little more specific? What, you said, you referenced.
We've done all the homework on
the equity analysis? Is that what you're asking about?
Anything else along those lines?
Yes,
that
we have done an equity
won't
analysis
have
here, and we did conclude.
I gotcha.
Not that I can foresee.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to take this opportunity to thank staff for bringing this forward and our partners. You know, for those of you who aren't aware, you know, I think from the time I joined the board 2.5 years ago, I've had concerns about the Portland Public Schools PASS program because it was directed solely to Portland Public Schools, and we serve a 3-county region with multiple school districts, and we have youth all over this region that deserve help and need help. And this goes a very, very long way to addressing those concerns and bringing more equity into our youth support system. And I really appreciate the time and the effort that it took to bring this forward. This has been something that we have been working on for a very long time. It was a major part of our discussion at our retreat last fall. I know Opal was there. I'm just a little bit surprised to hear they're feeling a little bit blindsided that this has come forward, because we have been talking about it for a long time, and we've welcomed all sorts of input on this. So I'm pleased with the efforts, and I fully intend to support this resolution and the ordinance. Thank you.
Just a quick comment and question in regards to, well, not really a question, but historically, as it says in the second paragraph, you know, on item number 5, this was funded out of the Betsy credits. And, you know, this is one of the things that has really been a contingent of mine individually, is that I can't have all the answers as an agency. I mean, we don't have all the answers. We don't have unlimited budgets. And historically, this was funded out of, you know, I would call it a little bit of a partnership, even though it was the Betsy, which is the business energy tax credits, which contributed, you know, millions of dollars to this region, you know, from the state level, which assisted us. And that partnership is something that we need to continue to work towards through various agencies and organizations throughout the metro area to assist us in the challenges that we face as we move forward. And so this mechanism, the Betsy's, have disappeared. And so it puts an extra additional burden upon this agency, in that we're spending an additional $1 million almost in this year that historically has come from, you know, a partner agency, that's the state, in regards to that. And I think as we go forward, I see, you know, we do have this triumvirate of the school district, the city, and TriMet that are working hard to bridge that gap that historically has been filled by a different agency. But in that end, I mean, it still creates an impact on this organization and other organizations in the region by not having that mechanism there that we've historically had. And so this isn't something that comes without dedication and cost to other parts of what we try to do. But I'm with Director Prosser in regards to thanking the organization and the efforts that we're making. And this is always an open conversation. I mean, this isn't an end to where we need to go and what possible solutions may exist, but certainly did want to let it go by that this is something that's an additional burden on this community in regards to as we move forward and as we work to bridge some of these gaps that are now left open by previous programs that were in place that don't exist anymore.
Anything else? I just want to say thank you, too. I think this is something the board's been asking staff to do for a long time. So I think we've got a model that can be replicated more throughout the region. And Christopher, I just want to make sure you know that this resolution, if passed by the board, gives our clear direction and it's quote, that the general manager is authorized to work with other school districts within the TriMet district to evaluate the feasibility of developing similar student pass partnership programs. So I think that's a very important thing. I want to make clear you know that that's our intent too, all right? So with that then, seeing no further questions, is there a motion to approve Resolution 14-06-34?
So moved. Second.
I hear a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 14-06-34, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you again. Congratulations to the staff and you, Mr. General Manager, for the work you've done on this.
If I could just add my thanks to Superintendent Carol Smith and Mayor Charlie Hales, who have been steadfast partners in developing the response to this program.
Perfect. Okay, well, let's move on to the last business item that we have here, which is ordinance number 335. And I'm going to ask our general counsel to read this ordinance by title only.
Mr. Board President, ordinance number 335 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, adopting youth fare reductions and amending TriMet Code Chapter 19.
Thank you. And again, we did have first reading and a public hearing at our last regular business meeting. For the benefit of anybody watching this, Mr. General Manager, could I just ask you to just go through briefly the major actions will be made by this particular change?
Absolutely. Mr. Board President, members of the board, again, as you noted, the second reading of the ordinance to reduce the youth fare. These fares, as reduced, would be effective September 1st of 2014, so for the new school year. And this is, again, part of the package of programs that included the resolution you just approved, which really, in consideration, is nearly revenue neutral to the district. To be a little bit more specific, the ordinance would reduce TriMet youth fares regionally from $30 to $28 for a monthly pass, and from $1.65 to $1.25 for a single ride ticket. And I would also just note that the equity analysis that Board Member Esmond referred to and asked the General Counsel about actually did indicate that the most important fare category, particularly for low-income youth, is that single ride ticket. So that's why there is clear, if you will, connection between the equity analysis and this greater reduction in the cash price as compared to the pass price. I would also note the pass is clearly heavily discounted compared to the cash itself. The action would reduce youth fare revenue by approximately $775,000. As noted, the resolution previously approved on the Portland Public School Youth Pass program would actually, because of the three-way sharing of costs, actually offset about $634,000 of that. So again, we've been true to the board general direction, which is to stay as close as we can to revenue neutrality related to our fare programs as we move forward. I'd also note that we can supplement a little of that with our fare mitigation program, which is currently being underrun. But again, we do see increasing use of that program over time. So we'll continue to keep you updated on how that program is used. Again, fares take effect September 1st. So hopefully, unless there are any questions. I leave
Other questions? Any other questions or comments? Nope. Okay. I guess I just want to, for the record, state that, again, Lupita, I think you made the suggestion from the Multnomah Youth Commission, which we did have the recommendations that we should reduce the rates even further. I will state I'm very comfortable with the reduction. I think it's, if my math is correct, it's about a third reduction in the fares for the youth programs at all levels. So I'm feeling this is where we should go. I think we need to monitor it on an annual basis. We need to look at our mix of fares. So I'm fairly comfortable with moving forward with this, but I guess we'll see if the board is also. So unless I've seen no further questions, then I would ask if there's a motion to approve ordinance number 335.
So moved. Second.
I hear a motion and I hear a second to approve ordinance 335. Is there further questions or comments by the board?
I do have just a comment. I am also very glad that the board and the staff has come to this place where we can do this. I would also like to encourage Opal and others, Bus Riders Unite, Metropolitan Youth, and all others to really understand that TriMet has, since the Betsy funds have gone out, have become a great partner with the city and Portland Public Schools in order to help provide youth passes to those who are in Portland Public Schools, which, by the way, does not provide yellow bus service. I would want to encourage you to use just as much as your energy and tactics to go to the Portland Public Schools board meeting and to City Council. Use your energy and your tactics, because it takes the other two of this party, of this partnership, to help make this work. It is not solely TriMet that is responsible for that, and it is not fair, and this is my opinion, and just asking TriMet to always be the one to do the extra dollar, to make this other concession. We need the other partners, as we would be asking the other partners in the other districts, and I am certainly in favor of our general manager working to bring that about if it so can be worked out, but we'd appreciate your help in doing that as well. Thank you.
I've got a quick comment. In regard, it's very encouraging being a part of a board and in conjunction with the management team and everybody involved and engaged. Since I've been on the board the last 2.5 years, we have worked hard, and Director Consuelo Zaragoza isn't here today, but I know she pressed hard along with a lot of just kind of, I was going to say pressure, but not really pressure, encouragement from the general population and from folks specifically working with low income to do the low income mitigation program, which I believe, put in roughly $2 million. The next step was to look at transfers and make sure that we listen to the community in that regard. And we heard, we listened, and now we're talking about youth fairs. And every step of the way, it's been something that I've been very proud to work with these great people and those who aren't here and those who were here previously in moving these efforts forward. And so, I'm encouraged that we continue along with the team, the leadership team and the organization to move these initiatives forward and feel like we're certainly listening to what's going on in the community and the questions that we're being asked and the encouragement that we're being given. And I look at those three items and feel very encouraged that we're moving in the right direction, and we're certainly listening to our constituents and stakeholders in those regards. I think on both sides of all of these discussions, and feel like we're coming away with things like revenue neutral opportunities. It takes harder work to do those things, but that's been our commitment, and I think we're staying true to those commitments as we move forward. And we'll continue to work on things like this, but certainly, it may not reach to the ends of the earth on every opportunity that may come forward, but certainly we're making, I think, significant progress in moving these items forward, so thank you.
Any other comments?
I have a few short words, too.
Please.
Thank you for your staff. No other word.
All right, are we ready for the question? So we have a motion on the table. We need to do a roll call vote on this. So with that, I'm going to request a vote, and Mr. General Counsel, you want to conduct the roll call vote?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Board President. Director Prosser?
Yes.
Director Stovall?
Yes.
Director Warner?
Yes?
Director Bethel?
With great enthusiasm and support, yes.
Director Esmond?
Yes.
All right. Motion is approved unanimously. Ordinance number 335 is therefore adopted. All right, thank you very much. When I'm looking at our agenda, that is actually the end of the business portion of our agenda. Go into the briefings. I wanted to make sure there's no other business, though, that needs to come before the board this morning. Okay, please.
Looks like we have a new format for our staff reports. Thank you. I like this format. It's very helpful, so appreciate it.
Continuous improvement is our motto. We'll keep working.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to adjourn our meeting of June 11th, 2014, and continue on to the briefing agenda. Mr. General Manager?
Well, very good. We actually, I would like to ask Dave.
How's everybody doing? We need a 5-minute break? I think we need about a 5-minute.
Good idea.
Before we start. Let everybody get started here, okay? We ready to go?
We're ready. This hour, this time this morning.
Dave and Alan are excited.
Dave and Alan, are you guys ready to go? Please
They
proceed.
can barely, I know, look how excited they are.
Dude, they were waiting today.
With bated breath, we want to talk to you about Southwest Corridor, where we are. So we got a couple slides here. Actually, we've got all of 13 to go through pretty quickly. I want to tell you where we've been, kind of the recap of the process so far, talk about narrowing and what are the next steps that can be anticipated. Going back into history a little bit, this is a regional project, and the region back in 2010 looked at where we don't have high-capacity transit and said, let's rank those corridors, and one of the highest ranking corridors was Southwest Corridor. It has a lot of growth happening there, and it has significant congestion, and there's the idea of how do you tie cities better together. And so this has really been a metro-led process. It's one of these regional processes that leads us down to a project that we may or may not get to build or operate at some point in the future, made up of many cities here, the 3 counties, and Neil sits on the steering committee. So it is a steering committee that has been directing staff on how we should move forward through what is a process of taking very many options and narrowing them to a few. So why this corridor? This goes back to why HCT, and it really is the growth that's expected in this corridor, 67% in population, 65% in households. Anybody who goes out there can know it's congested. But it really also is about the places that people really want to create in Southwest Corridor. So this is really vision-based. So the communities were asked, how do they want their cities, their town centers, their villages, their areas to grow? And so those were based on community processes that looked at the Barbara Concept Plan. Where would great places be along Barbara Boulevard? Tigard did the same thing. How does their downtown want to grow? How does what is called the Tigard Triangle want to grow? Linking Tualatin, again, how do they connect their employment with their downtown, their hospitals, and do a better job of that? And Sherwood itself. So all of these have started with a land use and plan and said, how do we make our town centers better? The argument, and what was decided back in last year about this time, was that it was a package. It was really an investment strategy that not just looked at roadways, but looked at parks, natural areas, looked at amenities in these cities that help build more land use or better land use, and looking at a strategic set of roadway connections and active transportation. By that I mean sidewalks and bike lanes that connect it. You all know parts of Southwest Corridor doesn't have sidewalks, doesn't have ways. If we want to have some walk to a station, get there safely, or walk across the street. So first and fundamentally, you got to have those sidewalks and enable our people to get safely to stops. On the transit side, really there are 2 levels. It's the surface enhancements that was really, we've heard that very strongly. We need better and more transit service out there. And then the high capacity transit, which is the longer term investment in the corridor that the region is thinking about making. And then there are also policies and incentives about making sure these town centers, if that infrastructure comes there, actually develops the way that the city envisioned them to do so. The Sheridan service enhancement, this is actually coming out of Allen's shop. Tom Mills has been doing a great job and is now pushing out the next set of these. This is really how do we link some of these town centers to do. If we just put high capacity transit out there and we don't have that fabric of transit out there, we won't realize the best benefit of that. So things like connecting Sherwood directly to Tualatin, looking at Tualatin to Oregon City, making some of those crosstown connections better and enhanced service is really what the community said. We really want this first and foremost. Let's look at that. And that work's been going on, and Tom's been doing a really great job in the public involvement process with that. The next is high capacity transit. So the decision back last year was to make sure that we look at high capacity transit. It leaves downtown Portland, serves OHSU, hits Barbara Boulevard, and the areas that the concept plan wants to see grow. PCC, the Sylvania campus, go into Tigard and then down to Tualatin. So those were the points that people wanted to hit, make sure that we had options to travel, high capacity, frequent service routes out of mixed traffic between those destinations. And the reasons are operational efficiencies, the ridership, and really the employment and household growth that we were talking about before. When it went to what they said for high-capacity transit, we want you to study both at this point. We want you to look at light rail. It's been your mode of choice for high-capacity transit in a lot of places, but we want to take a much stronger look at bus rapid transit. And for this quarter, given the congestion, the densities that we expect, the steering committee said we want to make sure that about between 50 to 100% of the right-of-way is protected. That means it's not affected by the congestion of cars, adjacent cars. It's going to be more reliable, it's going to be faster, and for us, it'll provide operational savings in dollars. So we also understand that to be eligible for the New Starts funding, it's going to be based on how well we do of serving these people, moving people, and how much of the right-of-way is in a separate right-of-way. The narrowing that we've done, this is where you start with a very wide funnel, throwing everything up on the wall of how you do solve these problems. So there are more than 50 high-capacity transit alternatives that have been suggested by technical members of the committee, by steering committee members, and by the public themselves. This last Monday, those were narrowed or accepted. The steering committee accepted a recommendation from staff to narrow those from those 50 to 60 down to about 29 options. But I think the steering committee recognized that's not good enough. We want you to do two more things. We want you to do some further refinement of those, because that's really too many options to go in and get real detailed workup and information on. And we need a better and fuller conversation with the community. How do we engage the community better? Not just community meetings, looking at doing what's the correct word I'm looking for? Online community meetings, other opportunities to reach the public. So we know that we do these pretty well. We've had community forums, we've had workshops, we have gone out and talked to the private sector, we've talked to institutions, neighborhood groups. I think the online engagement will do a lot more of that as we move forward, making sure we're talking to disadvantaged populations, and clearly outreach to the jurisdictions and their groups. We need to redouble our efforts and do more of that as we move forward. So the next steps are this fall, as we move forward, we will be doing more of that public outreach. Between now and January, we will be producing more of that technical information that will be shared with the community that can be used to make a fuller and informed narrowing of options as they potentially move forward. From our standpoint, TriMet will be asked to do more of the conceptual design work. Metro will actually pay us to do that work, so coming to you probably this fall, maybe as early as September, will be an IJ with a consulting group that will help us do some of that homework we need to do between now and December. If all goes well, we will start into an environmental impact statement sometime in 2015 and potentially be back to you as early as 2016 with what is considered a locally preferred option, a package of information that we think solves the issues and has public support. So that's my quick update on where we've been and where we're going with Southwest Corridor, and if there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Very quick, and thank you. I suspect there might be some comments or thoughts. Craig, you've been engaged in this. I bet you have some comments and thoughts.
And, I know the board and staff are fully aware that I used to be the city manager in Tigard, and I was the city manager there when, I think Tigard was really the one that move this project onto the regional consciousness. So I know that it's very important to Tigard. One of the things about this project that, again, speaking from my Tigard background, that we were really excited about is we're approaching the development of this study and this project differently than we have in the past. In the past, we looked at the transit needs and kind of figured out where the line would go and then figured out where the stations would go. This project, there is a much, much stronger emphasis on looking at the expected and desired land uses and, how do you make places, and the stations, the stops are kind of more focused on how can we support those local aspirations, and then how do you connect them with rail or BRT. So I'm really excited about this, and I'm really anxious to see what the outcome is. I do have, one question, which, obviously there was a ballot measure in Tigard this spring that purported to, it changed the city charter in Tigard in relation to these projects. How has that impacted the conduct of this study, and how is, it's more of a Tigard question. How are they responding, and how is all this going to be coordinated with that new requirement?
So I'm not an attorney, but what I've seen from our colleagues at Tigard is they have continued to participate in the process. I think their election was about, at some point, come back to us if you're going to move forward for a vote. So this is really about studying. It's not about building. It's not about choosing what you're going to do. But I expect that at some point in the future there will be a vote, both probably, maybe regionally, but certainly in Tigard and potentially in Tualatin as we move forward. But our colleagues from Mayor Cook down through staff have been very participatory in making us aware of their issues, concerns, and aspirations as we move forward. I haven't seen a significant change in their participation in the project.
Thank you.
Other comments? I guess I just add, I see Ethan in the front row here. If you look at this, Ethan, I suspect if some of this was implemented, you would probably have a lot better connection from Tigard over to the Sequoia Parkway and the Home Depot. So I think between the local service, which we all know we need to continue to work on, and this, I think hopefully we can get to some of the issues that you brought up to us earlier under the public comments.
I would say one other thing, that the implementation of the $7.1 million in additional service that's going out there affects Southwest Corridor, and that doesn't go unnoticed. So that, along with the service enhancements, which is the immediacy of putting more service out there now, the interim, which is the service enhancements, and the long term of the high-capacity transit, and how those all get stitched together actually is a pretty good story, and I think the public is understanding that.
Good. All right, well, thank you very much for the update. I didn't hear anything from you, Alan, on this one. Are you?
Well, maybe while Gwen is shifting over to the Pell Division project that I was going to update you on, I'll hammer just a little bit more of the service enhancement plan, which that's a little acronym-y. So when we talk to the public, we tend to try to talk about sort of the future of transit and building a shared vision for service. And if any of you are interested, or if anybody who's watching is interested, TriMet.org/future has updates for all 5 of the service enhancement plan areas. And it's a great opportunity both in the Southwest Corridor as well as in the Powell Division Corridor to do both the high-capacity transit future visioning and the visioning for the entire system, so that we can serve the needs for mobility for the entire area, not just one line. With that, great, thanks, Dave. A quick update on Powell Division. This project is behind the Southwest in terms of progression, and I've updated you on this once before, so this will be pretty quick, but wanted to just keep you up to speed, and we'll be coming back to you over a period of time. It's both a transit and development project, with the idea, once again, that transit supports communities and the way communities want to grow. Transit infrastructure supports both existing businesses, existing residents, as well as those new people and businesses that are moving in. And recognizing both of those very formally in a project makes a lot of sense and allows us to take advantage of a lot of kind of synergies and really work with the community to make as many improvements as possible. Lots of great destinations on this corridor. I won't pick them all out, but of course downtown and OHSU, PCC Southeast, the Jade District, some of the core areas along Powell and Division, and then downtown Gresham and Mount Hood Community College, all potentially within this corridor and potentially on a line that could be served along here. The potential is very real in that we're not that far from 20,000 riders a day on an average weekday on the 2 bus lines that serve Powell and Division already. So there's a lot of transit ridership. There's a lot of ability to provide benefits to existing riders with an enhanced service, as well as attract new riders and support new development. I'm going to skip past that real quickly, just talk about partnerships. As with any project, it's absolutely essential that we work with other partners, and there's a steering committee for this project just as well, and it's a very broad-based steering committee recognizing the diverse interests and needs in the corridor, everything from, of course, the cities and TriMet and Metro, but also some of the nonprofits and social service agencies that are serving the needs of the various communities along the way, looking for opportunities to provide improvement. I've already talked about the integration with the future of transit or the service enhancement plans, and we're very consciously making sure, even in outreach and engagement strategies, that when we talk to the public, they're able to engage us in both the overall transit system as well as this individual corridor. There have been lots of opportunities. Of course, we've had some open houses, but we've also gone to where people are to talk to them, to understand what the needs and wishes are. And there's a survey that's currently active online at oregonmetro.gov/PAL Division, as well as we're doing those surveys in person to folks who don't have online access or don't have the time to go and find that. Steering committee, as I mentioned, a broad, diverse group that really brings a lot of interest together and a lot of energy together. Neil is our representative on that. The corridor is part of the corridor, especially East Portland and East County, is in an area that was developed when there wasn't a lot of focus on basic infrastructure. So there are still parts, and much of Outer Powell doesn't have sidewalks. There are places where there are not adequate crossings. So a lot of the basic infrastructure that really supports transit is still needed. We've been working ahead of the project, regardless of what happens, even if nothing happens, with partners, including ODOT, including the city, including both cities of Portland and Gresham and the county, to try and identify ways to improve some of that. So working with our partners, we've identified over $10 million worth of funding for things like sidewalk and crossing improvements along the corridor, so that if and when a project comes along, it'll be that much more effective at providing access to the entire corridor. This last slide is an extremely conceptual timeline. This project is very much, we started after the Southwest Corridor and did so consciously, but because we're trying to be nimble and meet the needs of a corridor that is only 1.5 miles, 2 miles south of the existing MAX line, we're also looking at how we can deliver the benefits as quickly as possible. We're hoping for a mode decision sometime perhaps in calendar year 2014. That is, are we pursuing bus rapid transit? Is it some other option? And then looking at a true definition of the project by the middle of 2015. That would include mode, terminus alignment, general station area, that kind of thing. And then very conceptually, if it is kind of in that more nimble area, in the more affordable area of high capacity transit, we could be looking at design proceeding soon after that, and construction and actually service before the end of the decade. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions. We'll be coming back as this project proceeds, and of course, we'll continue to collaborate very closely with the project in looking at our future of transit shared vision efforts as well.
Do we have questions from the board?
Yeah, it looks to me like the bus is going to be the only choice.
We're a little ahead
BRT?
we're a little ahead of the process for me to say that specifically. If the idea that has been floated about doing a relatively nimble, quick project were to happen, it does need to be more of that kind of flavor.
As compared to?
As compared to a light rail or a streetcar or, other options like that. I guess the one other thing I should have mentioned is that this portion, especially East Portland, East County, is looking at a lot of development and a lot of development pressure on the existing community. And one of the things that a subgroup of the steering committee just did just a few weeks ago was identify the need for not the project itself, but the project partners, especially the cities, to work really hard on understanding what the pressures are for displacement in the area, for the potential to take advantage of the transit project, but also preserve the existing community and the existing businesses along the corridor. So that will be a parallel effort to make sure that we can bring both the benefits, but the existing community and existing businesses are able to benefit from that infrastructure.
Mr. Gerald Mage, you have a comment?
Just to note, another copy, and you saw on one of Alan's slide the picture of the Tillamook crossing, but I just wanted to make the note that this corridor has the potential to actually tie in at 8th and Division and to have an express route for buses, for example, or it could be a tracked vehicle all the way into downtown up to sort of First and Lincoln. So that's part of this overall link. And again, the destinations that Dr. Bethel talked so eloquently about earlier are amongst the destinations that we served by this corridor. And I would also note that one of the really key partners in all of this is Portland Community College, who has facilities both at 82nd and Division, as well as in the the OMSI area, and they have great plans to expand both of those campuses for additional opportunities as they centralize more of their programs to, frankly, increase the capacity of some of those programs. So I think there's some really exciting opportunities along the corridor. And to Director Esmond's question, Alan was being very politically correct about a process that needs to work through, but it's very hard for me to see an alternative other than really a rapid bus sort of line that works well in this corridor. And I've had the opportunity to, as Alan, to visit some other projects, Road 1 in Seattle that was sort of aligned to this over the weekend. And I think there's some really exciting things that can be done to really provide really high quality service on bus. And I think that's one thing that we do need to explore more as a community, because I think there's great flexibility and opportunity with that as we move forward. Just to make that editorial comment.
Well, one of the key things that we also want to keep in mind in this regard, and Mount Hood Community College is a partner in this also, but that's one of the critical components that we have in the East Metro in regards to, we've got a massive campus out there, 30,000 students on one location. That certainly is something that really needs to be connected to the other educational institutions in the region and to the other parts of the region. That's part of the East Side Service Enhancement Plan discussions that we're having, is additional service out there. Parking is a challenge as it is, and ensure that we keep that in mind as far as this connection goes. I know we are, but certainly wanted to just piggyback on the Portland Community College and that crossing. I think it's called the Tillicum Crossing, though.
One thing that Metro led, TriMet Assist, put in a Tiger 6 grant for planning, and the purpose of that planning grant is to talk to Mount Hood Community College, PCC, not only for a Powell Division, but also Southwest Corridor. How do we better engage them from a land use standpoint? How, if alignments, how would they go into their campuses, and how would we get more out of it? So there's a request out to the federal government to look at helping us fund that and get more information from the Mount Hood, the PCCs, to do a better job of connecting to those schools, because they're so important for the economic ladder.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question and a comment. The first question is, my assumption is, it's probably inside baseball, but this is this study will fulfill the alternatives analysis requirement from FTA on.
Yeah, there's no longer an alternatives analysis, capital A.
Okay.
There is a need within NEPA, of course, the National Environmental Policy Act, to have some kind of engagement strategy around looking at alternatives and make sure that your choice is open-eyed and clear-headed.
Okay.
And this does fulfill that need.
Okay, good. And then the comment I would make is, I do come back from Central Oregon over this way a lot, and I try to on a regular basis go down Powell. I hadn't been there for about a year, And I just want to compliment and say thanks to all the people who were involved, because I was very impressed with the changes I saw around 122nd and Powell in terms of sidewalk access, the safety of the bus stops, and just generally, there's obviously an emphasis by a number of entities in terms of getting, again, some safer places for people to walk. So it was good to see, and I hope we continue that effort. But it was noticed. I was surprised actually how much had been done there, because I know it hadn't been, much had been not done for 40 years, so I was pleased to see what I saw there. So please pass on thanks to whoever was involved.
Absolutely.
And they're, just to follow that up, they received, I think, about $10 million of STIP funding to do even more improvements there they're east of 205 to do further improvements, in East Portland. So we'll be seeing further improvements, which is very encouraging.
That section is an ODOT facility built, as a rural highway sometime in the past, and never given those infrastructure that it really needs to be part of the urban fabric. And so they've been working with the city and with us, and we've helped out as well to try and identify some funding for those needed improvements.
All right, well, thank you both for the briefings, appreciate it. I think the last briefing we have is an update on the Blue Line station rehabilitation, and Sean Beatty is going to excuse me.
Provide that for us. And as Sean is coming up, I would just note that, again, your budget begins, that you approved last month, begins a long-term investment program over the next 5 years to really rehabilitate and bring these older now, almost 30 years old, Blue Line stations up to a level of amenity and comfort that we now put into our new stations. We have learned a lot over the years in terms of how to improve and provide a comfortable place for our customers. So Sean will give you a little update on where we are with all of that.
Mr. President, members of the board, thank you for having me this morning. I'm Sean Batty. I'm the Director of Operating Projects. We're the department within Capital Projects that seeks to have the expertise in delivering these bigger maintenance projects on the operating system, both bus and rail. You heard a lot already from Alan and others about this is a continuation of our commitment to the east side of our region, both on the service side and on the capital side. Heard a bunch about service enhancement planning and PAL division, and I think also recognize that phrase, renew the blue. Renew the blue is really what I'd call a program of related projects. There's many projects that are divided up for staffing purposes, put the right experts on these to deliver. The project I'm going to talk to you about today is the one that is focused most fundamentally on the stations associated with the Blue Line, and that is called the Blue Line Station Rehabilitation Project. We have about $2.5 million programmed for the next 5 years in the Capital Asset Management and Improvement Program. And as the general manager said, that starts this year with the budget that you have approved. The program will affect 14 stations starting at 42nd and Hollywood and head east to Cleveland, but will exclude the Rockwood and Gresham Central because, as I think you all know, those were recently reconstructed in total. The list of potential improvements is here, and I'm going to focus on the first construction task, but I just want to remind the board that really our intention here is to get a twofer, and it's to really continue to get after our state of good repair generally. This is our oldest light rail alignment, one of our most heavily used, needs that. And state of good repair is about maintenance, not just the maintenance at the moment, but also maintainability. So when we make improvements, we're looking at ways to bring our best thinking about new features that are inherently more maintainable, less paint, more galvanized. Glass, it's easier to clean versus metal. This is part of that learning curve that we really bring to it after becoming a mature transit agency, particularly in light rail. But also the second important part of the twofer is continuing to apply our expertise in the safety and security realm. And really what you see here is a blend of priorities that look at where we can do both of those things very well in bringing these states into good state of good repair, but also applying our best thinking about safety and security. The first task that we expect to go to construction we call access control. And this is some examples, some previous efforts on access control. You can see on the right the introduction of a specialty paving pattern, channelization, and railing. The intention of access control really comes out of a SEPTED principle, which is crime prevention through environmental design. And really what we're trying to do is define the formal entry place in our stations and make it very clear to folks where it's safe and where it is the appropriate place to obtain a fare so that you can be on our platform. And these are subtle moves. We use a variety of cues to achieve that. You can see a past effort here. This is a drawing of where we're headed with the current effort. So in the upper left, I'm sorry, it's a bit washed out, is an example of, this is actually the 162nd platform. We're focused today on those platforms that are integrated in the street in Burnside. And on the lower right is an example of where we're headed. You can see that suite of elements on the kind of the right side of the circle. Maybe I can actually point with this. Is a TVM with a cover and a windscreen. Very important in this part of the region, as Member Stovall pointed out. New system map signage here, built around our current best practices and standards, both materials and outlay, and channelization railing that are really meant to make a moment of pause and make it very clear at what point are you supposed to obtain a fare to be on this platform. So this would be the components that would be rolled out as task one for construction. But I also wanted to give you some glimpses into kind of the full future package. The area I just enlarged is here, kind of at the access. You can see kind of from the left some enhancements and improvements to these were lift buildings before we had low floor vehicles. This is where wheelchairs were lifted into the high floor light rail vehicles. We no longer use them that way, obviously. But we do have a few that have uses where they either have panels in them, there's some selective storage of equipment. In some cases, we don't have uses, and we're looking at both removing some of the harder to maintain finishes, removing some of the glazing, the old mulch, replacing with roll-up doors, which have a better integral paint characteristic. We're also in some places looking at removing the buildings entirely or in part, just simply to eliminate the maintenance of those things which are no longer needed. You can also see, I think, some changes to the railing. These are mostly bollard and cable rail. A reasonable system, but the bollards were painted. That paint's failing. So we're moving to a system that we use more readily now, which is essentially galvanized steel, based on our standard system vernacular with the vertical pickets and the double horizontals. It gives us some amount of interchangeability, but also gives us essentially a system that doesn't require painting every 7 to 10 years. And we've had better success with that galvanized. And a nice detail here where we have elements where people are seeking to touch those galvanized elements. We're going to use stainless steel there, which is both an aesthetic touch, but also an even more maintainable product right where it's in the what we call touch zone. You can start to see some suggestions of modifications to the shelters, and I'll touch on that a little bit more in a moment. And then you can see just the more open, transparent platform, including a suggestion that we may consider removing some or all the trees on these platforms. And finally, we may consider removing some or all of the trees on these platforms.
You remember?
That's why I said it to this group.
All right.
And I think the key there is consider. We know there's a lot of values. The trees, we have a lot of goals that are wrapped up in there. I will say, frankly, though, this was never a great environment for trees. There are lots of street trees in this area. And when you think about, in particular, these platforms, 12 feet wide, there's a lot of stuff on them. We get better performance out of both our CCTV and our cameras when we do not have trees in this. It's not a foregone conclusion, but I think it's very likely that our safety and security personnel will be lobbying pretty hard for that particular element. And then I think the last thing I want to mention is the idea of the potential modifications to the existing shelters. This is an example of what the shelters look like now, and I'll just flash to where we're headed with the shelter. You can see the removal of those internal brick perpendicular structures. We can also see the replacement of them with windscreen and hopefully the addition of actually more windscreens at the ends, although it may be harder to achieve the length because of some of our desires for allowing multiple wheelchairs to pass at the same time. But I think you can really see, if I flat back and forth, the difference in openness and transparency, which is both about light but also the idea of natural surveillance, being able to see and be seen. And looking at a glass system that is, excuse me, sorry about the feedback, that is more built around the idea of structural glass panels and attachments and less little fussy mullions and insets that hold in the glass, which just are really difficult to maintain and tend to corrode over time and be require a lot of fasteners that gets lost and broken. So I think you can get a sense from that of where we're going with the shelter. So in summary, we're intending to start construction this year with Task 1. In December, you awarded a design contract. This winter and spring, we got your approval to work through the exemption from low bid process. And I think the primary reason I'm here is next month we'll be here seeking your approval of our recommendation to award a CMGC contract to support this work. And I want to make one important point that the general manager suggested. Operating projects with our expertise in fielding these projects on the operating system, we do not expect to come in and do all this work at one platform at one time. This is going to be a rolling series of tasks over the 5-year period. And the reason for that is we really want to minimize the impact of this on service. And that means we're going to have to carve off small areas and spaces and touch each platform more than once in order to do this in a way that we don't disrupt service. And so the expectation that you should have is we'll come in and do this Task 1. You'll see that hit several stations in a time. And then we'll come back again and do the shelters. And the third task is probably the most kind of what you think of with maintenance. That's the painting, the deep cleaning, some of the patching of walls and things like that. And those 3 tasks, and possibly a 4th, and this is the point, this is a complicated project to plan effectively, and that's one of the reasons why we really hope you'll support our award of the CMGC contract, because that is really the procurement method that gives us the tool to really effectively plan and schedule this work so we have a reliable schedule that we can implement, communicate to our passengers and to our operations staff. So we look forward to your support of that and to beginning construction in fall of this year. Sir.
I really appreciate and support, managing these projects to minimize impact on operations and the public. But that naturally leads to a question in my mind. I assume that would create staging challenges, and does that add to the overall cost of the project?
Well, staging for me is a pretty specific word. That's about the off-site staging of materials. And I'll get to your question. I don't need to parse words. Is this a challenging project to field construction? Yes. Is it more challenging because we think we want to minimize the impacts to operations? Yes. Cost is pretty nuanced because you have to look at what's the alternative. If the alternative, and I'm not proposing this, that we were just to hold in our heads was, let's close the station, get in and get out. Certainly the construction cost would be lower, but our cost to provide the service would be much, much higher because we'd be talking about bus bridges. And we recently did the Sunset Transit Center project. You took an action to approve a modification of that contract. We looked at this exact issue, and it was much, much less expensive to incur that bit of premium to make a slightly more complex phasing program than it was to provide temporary service and not impact. It's also likely less expensive to do it that way than to do that work at night in the very limited durations we can take. However, that work's not done yet, and that's one of the reasons why we really need the CMGC contractor to test those. And there's a chance you're going to see a little bit of a blended solution. I could see us doing a bit of night work. I don't really see us doing a bus bridge, but when we really look at cost and we hold that up, and we hold up those limitations, it's a possibility that for some work in some little limited locations, that might be what we would propose. But we're looking at total cost, not just contract cost. Hope I answered your question.
Yeah, and it makes sense. The other thing that I would ask is, the kind of the standard hit on government projects is you come in, you do a project, and then, a month later, someone comes back and tears all that up and does something else. So I would hope, as you go that way, that we would have a really good public information program, maybe signs at the various stations, just to make sure that people understand that we know what we're doing here and we're doing it this way for a reason. And
that is excellent counsel, and I will reinforce that to the team and make sure we've got not only communication about the first activities, but about the long-term vision as we start. Thank you.
Yeah, is this a hard bid?
No.
So,
The CMGC contractor will propose a.
I know you showed it to me months ago,
Oh, so that's
probably,
okay.
but.
They'll propose
But I
a-
wouldn't mind seeing it again,
The CMGC.
because, if I can finish,
Oh, I'm sorry.
because I could see contingencies is a polite word. You can't work today because of X, Y, or Z, and ergo, to be more cost to TriMet, and that's what I'm just thinking.
Certainly.
I don't envy this project, but it is what it is.
It is our expertise in operating projects. I'm not completely clear, and I don't want to cut you off again. Were you
Change
asking?
orders.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to have this agency pile up a lot of change orders. Or cost overruns because the contract was more open-ended than I would like.
Well, my opinion is.
I'm not attacking you. I'm just.
Oh, I understand. No, I understand. And I think that's a really valid question. I think this is one of those opportunities where something about this particular contracting method can sometimes get lost. So the CMGC contracting method, what we're doing is we're selecting a prime contractor. That prime contractor will work with us during the design phase to improve the design for design and constructability, and then will price individual packages of work based on the design that they participated in, but also based in their development of a staging and access and contracting plan, which they've negotiated with us in parallel. I am not going to sit here and tell you there won't be change orders on this project. We're not really.
There's always a percentage.
Right.
I know that, and you hold back and all that, but
Right.
I just don't want to see an open checkbook.
Oh, there's absolutely.
Thank
In
you.
fact, I would say quite the opposite.
Okay, thank you.
And I would point out, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Historically, our work with the CMGC contractors actually does a lot to minimize the risk of what you're wanting not to see. And so I think that's indeed the approach that we're taking on this work.
All right, thank you.
I just want to point out, Director Esmond, in July, we'll be probably asked to actually decide if this is the way we want to proceed. And I just look at the coordination and the just how you're going to stage all of this work as it goes on. This is an ideal kind of candidate for this work for that particular reason. So we can have a further discussion about that. But I think with the CMGC, you probably do have a better chance of minimizing change orders than if you had a low bid situation where you couldn't anticipate and didn't know what was going on until you actually started digging into this one individual station after another. So I think it's worthy of a discussion. Maybe when we come back to that discussion, we can have a little more robust discussion of that, kind of your thinking on that, of why we want to go with the CMGC versus the low bid. Okay? Good.
The other thing I note, and I think Sean didn't point it out specifically, but there are also a number of lighting improvements that come along with this, and LED lights, as a matter of fact, to the extent that we can maximize them. So we think that's a really, really key improvement in terms of that safety and surveillance issue as well.
It's funny you said that. I was just in LA yesterday meeting with LED lighting representative, a vendor who represents a lot of firms, and that there's a lot of stuff going on there.
Yep.
And I don't want you to lose, I'm sorry.
No, just one thing about the trees, since this is Portland, having been a part of Portland Parks, it would be good to develop a plan as to where you're going to replant those trees. Not cut them down and chop them up, but it's going to, there'll be expense because you got to dig it out, but someplace where they can be planted and reused, I think is much more palatable than saying we're just going to get rid of those trees. And so
I tend to agree. The project doesn't present a very ready opportunity to mitigate, but we'll certainly look and have a lot of experience messaging this issue on our bigger projects. So thank you.
I guess I'd say the same reasons that Craig mentioned, the coming back to do other pieces of work. I think the tree one is a good one to get ahead of because we will hear about it, I'm sure, especially if any are removed. So any further questions by the board? Okay, I think we'll declare victory today. Thank you very much, Sean. I appreciate it. All right, and our next meeting is July 9th.
That will be a briefing.
All right.
At Harrison Square, right?
All right. We'll see you then. Thank you.
You're going southeast, right?